Hello, and today I'm here to talk about the Minnesota Green Bay game that just happened. And Hundley was 17 of 40 for 130 yards, a 3.3 average. Two interceptions, no touchdown. He was sacked one time for a loss of 4 and a 30.2 rating. Carry wise, Jamal Williams led them with 15, had 58 yards, 3.9 yards per carry, no touchdowns, and a long of 9. Brett Hundley, 5 carries for 48 yards, 9.6 yards per carry. His long was 24. Aaron Jones only had 3 carries and got hurt about halfway through. 13 yards on those 3 carries for a 4.3 average. Randall Cobb had 1 carry for -6 yards, and that's 24 carries for 113 yards and a 4.7 average. Receiving, Michael Clark and Lance Kendricks are tied for leading receiver in terms of yards. They were both targeted 9 times. Clark had 3 catches while Kendricks had 4. Each had 36 yards. For Clark had 12 yards per average and Kendricks had 9. Randall Cobb, 4 catches for 22, 5.5 yards per catch, 7 targets. Jeff Janis caught 1 of his 2 targets for 12 yards. Jordy Nelson caught 3 of his 5 targets for only 11 yards. Geronimo Allison, 1 of 3 targets for 9 yards. Aaron Ripkowski caught his lone target for 4 yards. So, team-wise, they got 239 total yards. They held the ball for 28 minutes and 23 seconds, with those 2 turnovers both thrown to Harrison Smith. Hundley made a -2 in the turnover differential. They only had 12 first downs. They were 4 of 15 on third down, 0 of 4 on fourth down. They weren't able to convert inside the red zone, being 0 for 2, and they had 6 penalties for 79 yards in this game. Now, Minnesota, Keenum, 14 of 25 for 139 with a 5.6 average yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, no interceptions, was sacked 3 times for 15 yards. 85.2 was his rating. Now, in terms of rushing, this to me could have been a much better night for Latavius Murray, as he only had 21 carries for 69 yards, a 3.3 average, and a long of 14. McKinnon, 7 carries for 42 yards, 6.0 average. Diggs had 1 carry for 3 yards. Keenum, 4 carries for -2, although most of those are kneel downs. So, as a whole, 33 carries for 112 yards, a 3.4 average. 3.4 average is a little concerning because it seems like every week they kind of have a decent number of rushing yards, but they never have that average. And receiving, Diggs led the team with 5 catches on 8 targets for 60 yards and a touch. Thielen, 2 catches on... Wait, my bad. I'm used to reading Thielen second, or first. Morgan is second with 2 catches on 2 targets for 26 yards after a pretty good play by Case Keenum that got him 23 yards. Thielen, 2 catches on 6 targets for 24 yards. McKinnon had 1 catch on 2 targets for 9. Wright had 1 catch for 2 targets for 8. Rudolph, 1 for 6 on 1. Murray had 1 catch for 6 yards, and Floyd had 1 catch that resulted in nothing. So, on his 1 target, and Treadwell was targeted twice, but it resulted in nothing, which is a norm. So, team-wise, 236 total yards, so the Packers outgained them by 3 yards. 31 minutes and 37 seconds they took the ball. 2 plus 2 in turnover differential. 15 first downs, 4 out of 15 on third down, and 1 for 3 in the red zone. 2 penalties for 10 yards in the entire game. Now, Minnesota won this game 16-0, of course, and they are now 12-3, which I'm pretty sure is going to lock up our at least number 2 seed. Offensively, I feel like Keenum looked very uncomfortable in the cold, kind of like he was just thinking about it way too much. Like, it kind of felt like he needed to... It almost looked like he needed to huddle around a fire, and that's not good. Easton suffered a broken ankle. That's also very not good, because Jeremiah Searles comes in, even though I think they need to play Danny Isidora, because Isidora can actually... the 2 times Isidora played significant action, Cleveland. Baltimore, Murray had 116 yards. In Cleveland, I thought we had a pretty productive day running the ball, given what that defense does. That's actually a good defense against the run, which is kind of weird because people don't really recognize that because it's Cleveland. So I feel like you need to maybe play Searles in there. Not Searles, Isidora instead of Searles. And McKinnon needs to play more because honestly, like, Murray has too many of these games where he has a ton of carries, no yards, and McKinnon gets more than half of his carries. Well, not more than half of the yardage that Murray gets on less than half of the carries. And it feels like that happens quite a bit. So I feel like McKinnon should be on the field more. He's more of a 3-down threat to me anyway. And in my opinion, Shermer had a pretty rough night calling plays. I think we had too many of them rolling out to the left for Keenum, who is a right-handed quarterback. Keenum didn't really help too much by being off just barely because I think he was really uncomfortable playing in cold weather games, which brings me to my next point. We may not be able to travel to Philly if we need to. It gets cold in Philly, and unless they lose a game, which can happen, unless they lose a game in the playoffs, we probably will have to go to Philly. So I think we need to fix some of those things because we had too many plays where Keenum was just a hair short in some areas where it could have been, oh, that's a first down. That's not a first down. That keeps a drive moving. That's potential points, and there's too many of those in this game. So to me, if we're playing a real, well, I guess I'm not going to call Green Bay not a real team, but I'm just going to say a team that has all of its assets, which Green Bay did not tonight, you probably lose this game. Which is kind of weird because we're going to go over to the defensive side now because I think for the most part this team played fantastic tonight on defense. Although mobile quarterbacks I think might be the Vikings' Achilles heel because all the guys I kind of deem as kind of mobile or slightly mobile quarterbacks. You had Deshaun Kaiser, he had 5 carries for 18 yards and a touchdown in that game. Cam Newton had 11 for 70. Hundley, in the first game, only ran it one time for 3 yards, and he had another time where he ran tonight for 5 carries and 48 yards. So this is 22 carries. Just out of these 3 guys. 22 carries, 139 yards, and a 5.65 average, and a 1 touchdown with their longest run being given up to Cam Newton at 62. So I think mobile quarterbacks, we may not be able to handle too much, which means if we have to play Seattle and if they can get in, we may have a problem. If we have to play Cam Newton again, we may have a problem. So, but for the most part, the rest of those quarterbacks aren't the most mobile, Jared Goff being the most of the other ones. So I think we might be able to be okay as long as we don't see Russell Wilson or Cam Newton. And to me, it's insane that Harrison Smith did not make a Pro Bowl because he was all over the field tonight. He had 2 interceptions. He was making tackles left and right. How did he not make the Pro Bowl? He's a guy to me that may make first team All Pro, but he's not going to make the Pro Bowl. And it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. And due to him tonight, we actually pitched a shutout, which is the first time in 24 years, which is a little shocking once you hear it. But, like, they gave up a little bit too much in the run game, mainly to Brett Hundley, because if you take him out, they're nowhere close to 100 yards. So, to me, the run game was, you need to maybe shore up on these more mobile quarterbacks. Passing, they had 3.3 yards average per attempt. Some of this might be due to the cold, whether Keenum was off or Hundley was really off, or, just these things. Kind of feels like maybe this was due to the cold. And the one thing I think we need to really hope for is, like, we need this stay in Minnesota in that dome, because if we get more of these really cold games, we may struggle a bit. So, but other than that, we pitched the shutout. We did well on defense for the most part, and as long as this continues, we're good. And hopefully we get a nice little Christmas gift in Philly losing. And I bid you guys adieu.